Do you ever have one of those weird existential moments when you're just like eating a sandwich or something, and a sort of a wave comes over you, just a feeling telling you this is all a big misunderstanding, like a big accident, because it's just too odd to be anything else, and there's really no other possible explanation that all of this being a freak accident, or is that just me?
Yeah, so I mean, the purpose stuff comes from the fine tuning, so more than the consciousness issue. So let's come back to the fine tuning, right? This surprising discovery that certain numbers in physics are against incredible odds, just right for life. So Zaza, as you vividly put it there, well, maybe it's just a fluke, right? Flukes happen,
Yeah, sometimes people do win at the casino.
Or you're thinking of someone and they phone, or I have a wonderful picture in my book that my wife drew. My wife, Emma Bullock, does all the illustrations of my book. She did a wonderful picture of Jesus in toast. If you Google it, you get these times you've got
I saw that on the internet.
In the toast.
Yeah. It looks
a burn mark in toast.
like Jesus.
Looks just like, or I say Jesus, or the Western idea of Jesus, I guess, in certain films or certain, I guess
the Jared Leto Jesus
paintings. Yeah. But you don't say, oh my God, Jesus is communicating through us through toast. That's just a fluke. Well, I think that is a rational thing to say when it's not that improbable, right? But let me take another example. Suppose some burglars break into a bank, right? And there's a 20-digit combination and they guess it first time in like 5 seconds. And we're considering two possibilities, right? Hypothesis 1, they had inside information and they were told. Hypothesis 2, they just guessed it, they got it right. What are you going to think, right? You're not going to say, I suggest it would be profoundly irrational to say, oh, well, maybe they just guessed, No, look, right. That is incredibly improbable, and there's an alternative here that removes that improbability. I essentially think it's the same with the fine-tuning case, right? We've got two hypotheses, right? It's just chance. Well, setting aside the multiverse, we've talked about that. Obviously, we can still debate that, but setting that aside, okay, it's just chance against these incredible odds, and they really are, more than astronomical odds. It's that you're going to get these numbers right just by chance. Or maybe it's just chance, but I think there are alternative options that remove all that improbability. And therefore, I think the rational thing to do is to go for those alternatives. It's not rational to believe in probable things. It's not kind of brave to believe in probable things. And this can be made more precise, actually, with we do actually have a mathematically precise way of understanding how evidence works with something called Bayes' theorem, which was very important in tracking the pandemic. I was very happy I wasn't happy during the pandemic, but I remember in the Guardian newspaper, they had an image of Bayes' theorem because they had an article on how important this was in tracking the pandemic. But yeah, basically Bayes' theorem tells us, slightly oversimplifying, but all things being equal, you go for the hypothesis that removes improbability, that makes the evidence most likely, right? So just like if our evidence is the bank robbers got the right 20-digit code, well, you go for the theory that makes that likely, that they got inside information. Likewise, when we're thinking of the fine-tuning physics for life, to avoid the incredible improbability that this is just chance, I think we need to go for some sort of hypothesis, and I think there are rigorous hypotheses where there is actually some kind of goal-directedness towards life in that very early stage of the universe. And I think really the reason we're not doing that is cultural, I think. We've just got used to the idea, oh no, science, that sounds too goddish. Science has ruled that out. Science, that's a load of rubbish. And then the evidence changes, but when we still don't want to go near it because we just feel icky about it. But I think there are ways of making sense of that there's some kind of goal-directedness towards life. It makes the evidence we are finding more probable. It explains that evidence. I really think that's the rational thing to go for. And I think we're kind of a little bit in denial about it as a society. I think future historians will look back and think, why the hell did they ignore this fine tuning stuff for so long?
Thank you for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Again, this podcast has no sponsors, no production team, and no editors. It's just little old me, and as such, I'm at the mercy of you lovely folks watching and listening. So please do subscribe on YouTube, click that little bell thing or whatever, it helps. Follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you can. Also, I don't want to sell you like an atrocious t-shirt that you don't really need. So if you can, and most of all, if you want, of course, please support me on Patreon. And here I have to express my eternal gratitude to my patrons on Patreon, aka the producers of this show. As always, without you, Tovarishi and Tovarishice, this show simply would not exist at all. So a massive thank you to Goran Ivasic, Anje Sever, Ole, Marin Ferrara, Aljaž, Štrole, Aida, Mancian, Miha Medved, Medinho, Goran, Gordan, Lorenzo, Jurečuk, Mila, Carmen, Veronica, and Taichi. You guys are the best.